Okay, picture this for a second. The 20th century, but with no World War II. No Hitler, no Stalin's gulags. It sounds so much better, right? But what if it wasn't? We're going to explore a wild alternate history that all hinges on one single moment, asking a question that completely turns our world upside down.
Here's the big idea. What if Karl Marx was right about where a communist revolution should happen? He was just off on the timing. You see, his whole theory was designed for a modern industrial giant, not the farming society that Russia was.
And this quote just nails it. The Soviet Union we all know about was fundamentally a contradiction. It was a communist revolution in a place Marx himself would have said was the absolute last place it could ever work. So you gotta wonder, what if the revolution actually happened in the one country he thought was perfect for it?
All right, so to build this alternate timeline, we have to rewind the clock to one specific moment where history could have zigged, but it zagged. And that moment, our point of divergence, is the chaotic, violent German Revolution of 1919.
So Germany is in ruins after World War I, and this communist group, the Spartacusists, tries to take over Berlin. In our history, this uprising was crushed. It's basically a footnote. But in this other world, it's the spark that lights the whole fire.
And here is the exact fork in the road. On one side, you've got our history. The revolution gets smashed by these right-wing militias called the Free Corps. But on the other path, something different happens. A couple of key army units switch sides. They defect to the revolutionaries, and suddenly what was impossible becomes reality.
And just like that, the German Socialist Republic is born. Now this is the revolution Marx was actually talking about. Not happening out in the Russian countryside, but right in the industrial heart of Europe, backed by German steel, German engineering, and a huge, organized, politically active workforce. It's the revolution, made to order.
So how does this one event change the whole world? Well, it creates a brand new world order, a communist bloc that isn't led from Moscow, it's led from Berlin.
Right away, the roles are completely reversed. Russia's Bolsheviks, who in our world were the leaders of international communism, are now the junior partners. The agrarian student is now looking to the industrial master, Germany, for guidance.
This changes everything inside Russia. A guy like Stalin, whose paranoia and brutality were fueled by Russia's total isolation, well, he never rises to absolute power. You take away that pressure cooker environment, and you don't get his kind of unique, personal terror. Instead, what you probably get is a committee of gray, faceless bureaucrats. Still oppressive, no doubt, but in a totally different, less personal way.
And you can see the difference in their economies. Forget Stalin's brutal 5-year plans, that mad, deadly dash to build an industrial nation from nothing. Instead, you get a planned integration. It's a two-way street. German tech and machinery flow east to modernize Russia, and Russian oil and grain flow west to power German industry. It's built on efficiency, not desperation.
And that leads to maybe the biggest difference of all, the human cost. The Great Purge, the gulags, the horrific Holodomor famine, all of those things were a direct result of Stalin's frantic, brutal push to modernize. In this world, that specific kind of terror just vanishes. It's replaced by something else, for sure, a gray, suffocating bureaucracy, but it's far, far less murderous.
And all of this leads to the single biggest change to our timeline. Because when you put a powerful communist Germany right in the center of Europe, the entire story of the 20th century changes. And that starts with the one war that defined our age.
World War II. As we know it, it simply never happens. Just let that sink in for a second. Think of all the consequences of that one sentence.
So, why? Well, the logic is actually pretty simple and pretty devastating. The Nazi Party rose to power by screaming about the threat of a communist takeover. Well, in this timeline, the communist takeover already happened. The Nazis' main reason to exist is gone. Adolf Hitler, he just remains a failed artist, a fringed political loudmouth nobody remembers. And without him, Mussolini's fascist Italy probably just fizzles out too.
But don't think the world is suddenly at peace. No way. What replaces World War II is a Cold War, one that starts a full 2 decades earlier. It's a global showdown between the capitalist West and this new, incredibly powerful German-led communist bloc. The conflict is still there. It just takes a very different shape. So let's jump forward. What does this world actually look like today, in our time? Is it a better place? Or did we just swap one kind of nightmare for a different one?
This Cold War is a whole different beast. It's not the West versus a crumbling, inefficient Soviet economy. This is a real competition between two dynamic, technologically advanced systems. With German engineering at its heart,
the red bloc is a serious rival. Things like the space race, it would have been a much, much closer fight. Which of course brings us to the million-dollar question. Does the Berlin Wall still fall? Does the Soviet Union still collapse in 1991?
And the answer is probably not. The version of the Soviet Union in this timeline, which is more stable, more prosperous because of its partnership with Germany, it doesn't have the same internal rot that destroyed it in our world. It might change, maybe it reforms into something more like modern China, but it almost certainly wouldn't just fall apart.
And the big consequence for us today? A truly multipolar world. Without that decisive victory in World War II, the United States never becomes the single global superpower. Instead, it's just one of several big players in a constant, high-stakes game of chess between Washington, the Berlin-Moscow alliance, and other powers like a rising China.
So, after all that, is it a better world? This is where we hit the supreme irony of this whole thought experiment. By creating a more successful, more technically correct Marxist state, the world might have just traded one kind of totalitarian nightmare for another.
A system that's less brutal, yes, but maybe more insidious. A world without the massive, bloody atrocities of our 20th century, but one that's locked into a permanent, efficient, and soulless system of social control. A system that's less violent, maybe, but even more total. And that leaves us with one final chilling question. In this German century, what is the true cost of peace?